We're live from Houston, Texas, and we want to bring some immigration update right now. Along with me is my business partner, Stephen Brown. Stephen, now the visa revocations were common before, where if the person is an F1 visa, or let's say if the person is on H1b visa and their visa is valid, and let's say they do have a DUI arrest, and they used to get the visa revoked. That means that they can potentially it would have been revoked. And that means that they can continue on the student visa and they can continue on the H1B visa. And when they go for stamping, they have to go to the medical examination and other things and get the stamping. And once that is done, they would have been safely, they can keep traveling outside the country and coming back in. Now, what is this new development that you are coming up with, where you're telling that even though that he had an arrest before, he went for stamping, he disclosed everything, he got the stamping, he came back into United States, and right now he's an H1B working for a company, and now he gets an email from the consulate saying that his visa has been revoked. What does this mean? Where is this new development coming?
Yeah, so we're seeing this new trend starting late last week into this. As you noted, Rahul, it wasn't uncommon. Anytime anybody got a DUI arrest, not a conviction, they would get a visa revocation. We've seen that expand in the current administration for many other types of arrests, and these visa revocations have really been Department of State saying like, hey, come check in with us. What started last week is them going back and revoking visas for individuals who had old arrests, not convictions, but arrests. An individual I spoke with last Friday had a arrest in 2017. The charges got dismissed and expunged. And so this was a 2017 arrest. He's gone for visa stamping twice, entered the U.S., multiple times, and now has the visa revocation. And I said, okay, maybe you're a one-off. And I had a podcast Friday afternoon, and somebody said Friday evening, and somebody, the guy I was with said, "Oh, I've heard of a couple." So okay, maybe it's a couple. And then this weekend we saw a whole bunch, come in to our office, and these are all these prudential visa revocations, but they're all for old arrests. They're not things that happened this weekend. They're things that happened 2017, 2018, maybe 2022. And they're revoking.
I had one with 2012.
Yeah. And so Department of State is revoking. Now, I will say this, Rahul, I want to distinguish from the student visa stuff for a minute, because this is exactly what happened in the spring with the student visa stuff. The difference here is twofold. One, in the student visa stuff, the Department of State said your visa's been revoked. Well, a visa revocation might make you amenable to removal, right? We know that. But what they argued is, these are prudential visa revocations. What we're seeing in these is they're specifically saying it is prudentially revoked. And we'll talk about what that means in a minute. The other difference from the student visa stuff is that in the student visa context, they were also terminating the CVIS, which terminated status. So far, right now, and we'll keep people up to date, we aren't seeing notices of intent to revoke H1B status with these. So it's just the Department of State side. Why is that important, Rahul? Because it means they could continue to maintain their status in the U.S. if they're on H1, H4, even if they have that prudential visa revocation.
So practically what you're telling is that right now, if they have a job, they are an H1B. If the H1B is still valid, they can continue working even though their visa has been revoked. And they can stay in United States, not a problem. But if ever they travel outside the country, they cannot come back using the visa stamping right now.
Yeah, that's correct. So think about it this way, Rahul. When you get the visa in your passport, it has that control number at the top. Right. And that's your specific visa number, let's say. Okay. That visa foil in your passport. And you use that to seek admission into the U.S. These visa revocations are only revoking, control number 1, 2, 3, 4, meaning it is not valid in your passport anymore. Right. So you can't use it to travel. It does not impact your ability to maintain status. It doesn't impact your ability to adjust to a green card. It doesn't impact your ability to change status. It impacts your ability to leave the U.S. and seek to enter based off of that visa.
And they can travel within United States without any problem too.
No issues. No issues.
Okay. So now, why is this a new development? Is there a new change in the policy? Why did not we hear anything from the administration? Why only Reddy Newman PC is telling this?
So I put it out on listserv. I'm hearing other attorneys seeing it as well. I don't know. This is kind of one of those things, sort of like the student visa, student criminal alien initiative, where it kind of pops up overnight and Department of State is going through and they're going through. It's their turn. Now they've, Emily Newman, quote, tweeted something back from March from Department of State that says, the U.S. visa screening doesn't stop once a visa is issued. We continuously check to make sure they comply with the law. And so I don't know if now they've developed, hey, we did this with the student visas where we, created these spreadsheets that say, here's all these arrests, and then they could just mass revoke the visas like they did in the student. Maybe they've just moved over to the H1b context now.
Okay. Right now, for the people who have already have any criminal record or any arrest record right now, I would advise them not to travel, even if their visa has not been revoked, because one of our client recently got an email from the consulate saying his visa has been revoked, but he got stuck in India. Now he can't come back. Now, for any people, anybody has any visas, any arrest record though, if you have any plans to travel, do not travel outside the country before consulting an immigration lawyer. Now, even though my client who had an arrest record in 2012, he went to the medical examination, got the visa stamping, then afterwards he got 3 times visa stamping, Stephen. Now he got the visa revoked. Is it safe? Do you advise him that he can travel outside the country and get the stamping and come back? Or you don't?
No, because one, we know that visa you have is revoked. And so a couple things you got to keep in mind. You are going to have to put on the DS, you're going to have to go for visa stamping again, which means you have to go do another DS-160, which means you are going to have to put that you had a visa revoked. I know that what we are seeing is they're putting cases in administrative processing when there have been arrests. Even if the individual, Rahul, shows up to the visa interview with, here's my arrest records, here's the document saying it was dismissed, here's the document showing it's been expunged, they still put it in administrative processing. Okay, now what? Well, now I've heard, people that are waiting 5, 6, 7 months, from when they went for visa.
You gave it 3 times before. I told the same information to you.
I agree, right? I think it's the definition of arbitrary when they're trying to make a new decision, but they are trying to go through the vetting process. And I think that's something that they are going to say, let's take this example, Rahul. I mean, we watch the news all the time, right? And their opinion is President Biden left the borders open to everybody. Everybody could just come in. You and I know that's not true for the high-skilled immigrants, but that's what they say. And so I imagine if I'm sitting in Marco Rubio's shoes, their view is we need to, maybe they got visas before. Maybe they even got visas during the first Trump administration. I've seen that, right, with this. We want to make sure now that we want to issue them a visa. And remember, Rahul, visa issuance is discretionary and hard to overcome any denials, in court or anything. So they could decide, Rahul, I don't like your burnt orange longhorn color sweater. I'm denying your visa, let alone, right, we don't like the fact that you have a previous arrest. Even though you're not inadmissible because just an arrest, they can make that decision.
So right now we advise anybody who has visa revoked, do not make any travel plans. If you have any arrest record, do not make any travel plans. If you're already outside the country, if your visa is not yet revoked, you may still want to consult an immigration lawyer before you come into the United States, because your visa could have been revoked. Your visa could be revoked while you're on the flight. And we don't know what's going to happen at the port of entry of the CBP. as we get new developments on this particular issue, because this is a recent development. Last week, we didn't wanted to release this information as Stephen and Emily and Rebecca were discussing about this, but we were a bit hesitant because we didn't thought that it's going across the board. It may be like a couple of people that they're not doing across the board. But today, this is a new development where we see a lot of people contacting us saying that visa has been revoked because they have one arrest record sometime, somewhere, maybe decade ago or 20 years ago or 15 years ago they got, and now their visa is revoked. So we tell everybody not to make any travel plans without discussing with an immigration lawyer. And if you're already outside the country, consult an immigration lawyer before you come into the country. If your visa has been revoked, consult an immigration lawyer to look into what are the plans that you have. As Stephen has explained, though, if you're already in United States, if you're working, your H1b is valid. Even though your visa has been revoked, you can continue working. At this point of time, we don't see any problem in you extending the H1b, even though Stephen has said that there are some problems that we faced for the F1 student visas when this kind of thing instant because they suspended the service system. Right now, we don't see any suspension of the service system. We don't see any of the H1b revocation. It's only the visa. Prudential visa has been revoked, not your current H1b. Your status is not. So you can stay in the country, continue in the country.
Yeah, and why do we know that, right? Because I had a lawyer, that I know that had texted me, said, "Hey, like I think they're amenable to removal." And generally speaking, right, when you look at visa revocations, the statute says on removability that a visa revocation can be grounds for removal. Well, when we had the student visa litigation, Rahul, we had a senior official with ICE. He was the assistant director, National Security Division for HSI, Homeland Security Division. And he says prudential visa revocation, absent other factors, does not make an individual amenable to removal. The whole idea of this prudential visa revocation is Department of State wants you to check in, right? When you travel. And we, again, to your point, Rahul, we've seen this with DUIs. They're going to have you go through the medical panel. And in the past, you could get a visa once you go through the medical panel. What we're seeing now that makes it different than what we saw during the Biden administration, during the first Trump administration, during the Obama administration, is they're going back and getting old crimes. It used to be you got arrested on Saturday, by Monday morning you had a visa revocation email from Department of State. It wasn't, well, I got arrested in 2017, now I've got a visa revocation, even though I've gotten a visa twice since then. So just I felt like it's important because, like you mentioned, you and I talked about this. You, me, Emily, Rebecca, Ryan. We talked about this Friday morning, and Crystal was in there, and we said we don't know yet. Like, there's only one or two of these. I went on a podcast, Rahul. I went on a podcast Friday evening, 8:00, and I said, let's talk about this, but I don't know if it's a trend or one or two people. And then I messaged the podcast group. I said, I think it's a trend now. Because we saw over the weekend a bunch of these contact us. And that's, something. So a couple of questions we're getting in, Rahul, is speeding tickets, fender benders. What I think they're doing, Rahul, is what they did in the student visa context, and they're comparing people who are in NCIC, the national, National Crime Information Center database. And basically, if you got fingerprinted, you show up in NCIC. Now, NCIC also includes victims of crimes who happen to be fingerprinted while the police were sorting it out, lost individual, missing persons. But if you ended up, if whatever happened ended up with you being fingerprinted, I think you're gonna maybe see part of this. So I don't think a fender bender would. I think a speeding ticket that is a typical speeding ticket would not. But in some places, and we saw this happen in the student visa stuff, if you have a high enough of a speed, it becomes a reckless driving, which is a criminal matter. And so I think it's mostly going to be people that are fingerprinted. We don't have the details like we did during the student visa stuff because, We haven't
But
gotten
at this
testimony.
point of time, the
It's too
95% of the
early.
people who 95% of the people who are on the speeding ticket should not be in trouble. For any person who have been fingerprinted, which 95% of the time they don't fingerprint the people, but if you are at 30 miles where you're supposed to and you're going 100 miles, definitely at that point of time they will detain the person because you're going way over the speed limit. Then they probably need to worry about this, right, Stephen?
Yeah, yeah. I think again, if you were fingerprinted, concern. If you're not fingerprinted, maybe not so much.
Advanced parole people, though, we would want them to consult immigration lawyer right now if you're outside the country. If you are inside the country, if you are on advanced parole right now, and you already have an arrest record, we do not want you to travel outside the country, though, because we will do as we come across. Every week we do bring an immigration update as Tuesday, and if there is any special event, we do bring in immigration updates. Though we will see how some other people who have traveled outside the country, how what's going on with them. We will inform you. But we don't want you to be the person who goes and do the experimental person for us. We don't want you to do the person. If somebody
Yeah,
else is doing it, they're contacting us, that's fine. Let them do it. But we don't want you to do that one. So
right.
for
Because
advanced
they
parole
could.
people, if you're already outside the country, though, definitely I want you to consult an immigration lawyer, keep all the documents together, probably travel as soon as possible back into this country if you have any arrest record. If you have any arrest record, you have an advanced parole, if you have any plans to travel, we do not want you to travel until you get a clearance from the immigration lawyer that you are clear to travel, because this is a new development and we don't know where we are heading at this point of time. We don't know where we are right now at this point of time. All we know is that they are revoking the visas, even though you disclose that information on DS-160, even though you got a couple of time visas with the same arrest record, even though you're not deportable, you're not explodable, you are still you're not inadmissible into this country. They are revoking the visas. We don't know how the administration is going to act. So we want people to be careful at this point of time before they make any. Remember that Trump administration, from the beginning, we've been telling they may have more rights when you travel outside the country and you try to come back into the country. They have more rights. That's the reason $100,000 H1b has been only put for the people who are outside the country. If you're an F1 visa or H4 to change to H1, the $100,000 is not applicable. So we do not want you to make any travel plans if you have any arrest record. Stephen?
Yeah, and so why do why do the live if we don't have all that much information? Well, I can tell you, some people have received these and think I got to leave right now. I got to leave the United States right now. And so we kind of wanted to explain what these prudentially revoked visas are and what it means. So that way, maybe you have a little bit more. Okay, it's stressful, but I don't need to leave right now kind of mentality.
Stephen, for there's a question from Kelby Paitam. He's saying that if somebody has an arrest record, they have an H1b status, and there's an expired visa, you're not going to get any. You may not get any email from the consulate because your visa has already expired. So you can continue staying in the country. However, don't make any travel plans to go outside the country to get the stamping and come back. Do not do that. This question is coming from YouTube.
Yeah,
Any
and
other?
if we think, so I could do a colleague of mine this morning. I assume they're going to run the same playbook they did for the student visas. And so what did that do? They created these giant spreadsheets that, with, let's say, 500 individuals, their arrest reasons, whatever. Then they differentiated between valid visas and expired visas. And then they decided, okay, valid visas revoked. Okay. And they didn't touch the expired visas, assuming they're doing the same play, right? That's kind of how I think it would go. But like Rahul said, you might, even if you have an arrest from 20 years ago and you've gotten visa stamping 5 times since then, you might have issues. And I want to be clear what we're talking about, Rahul. It's not convictions, it's arrests. Okay. And usually they're different in immigration law, but they are taking a hard stance on the arrest, not just
Yeah, I had
Not
a
that.
consultation with a guy who has been arrested for domestic violence. The case was not being taken up. The case was being expunged. The case was completely dropped, but still he got his visa revoked.
We had an issue during the student visa stuff where an individual was arrested because she hit someone who was attacking her, and the police arrested both of them, and until they could figure out what happened. No charges were brought because she was the victim, but her visa was still revoked. Um,
So,
so just keep
so
that in mind.
yeah. So to conclude, Stephen, I want to tell people that if you have any arrest record right now, if you're in the country, if your visa has been getting revoked, that is common right now, but you can continue working if you're an H1b. You can extend the status, you can change the status, you can amend the status, but don't make any travel plans. If you're outside the country, you ever had any arrest record, we definitely want you to contact an immigration lawyer before you come back into the country. Do not make any travel plans. As things will develop, we will tell as the visa is getting stamped or if they're getting rejected. Because if they have a policy that every visa which they are going to issue, they're going to revoke it. I mean, you go to the consulate, even if you get the visa, and by the time you get on the flight, what if they revoke their visa? Then you cannot come back into the country. So that's our advice right now, is not to travel right now. Anything else, Steven?
No, just we'll keep you guys updated as we see more information come about too.
And Stephen, what about the litigation? Can you litigate this in the court?
I don't think so right now. Typically, there's no jurisdiction over these. We have a case on the student visa revocations only because we gained so much evidence that we can show there was not individualized decision making, which makes it a lot different. Right now, we aren't at that stage. That's something that might develop in time, but not right this minute, because it's still an uphill battle with the evidence we have in the student cases.
Okay. Anything else, Stephen, before we?
No, thanks everybody. Like I said, this is just trying to let folks know this is happening. It's, I think we had 7 or 8 folks contact us over the weekend, WhatsApp groups, I've seen it, plus, stuff online. So just hang tight, and we'll get with everybody as we get updates.